Okay, good morning. We are in Tuf Mem Beis, Sif Beis. Hapas Atzma, She'ipsha, V'nifsla Milach al HaKelev. Real chametz, real bread, but it spoiled, it got moldy. So much so that even a dog wouldn't eat it. And I want to point out that just because your bread gets moldy, it gets spots of mold on it, that doesn't mean that it's nifsala mi'achilas kelev. It has to be really moldy that even a dog wouldn't eat it. Umalugma shenisra. Similarly, a poultice, which in those days would be flour together with dates. Figs. Flour and figs that were chewed together to make it a paste. And if that, was laid out long enough that it got disgusting, that, that a dog wouldn't eat it. And a chayiv levayir. Things like this, you don't need to get rid of before Pesach. You can have it over Pesach. Gimel. Begadim shekibsu osam b'chelev chita. Clothes that were washed with cream of wheat, what we would call starch. And similarly, papers, or let's say wallpaper, that was glued with a starch-like chametz concoction to the wall. Or anything you could do, let's say you want to make a cheap cover to your window. So you starch it, papers starch to a window. So with the window, we're going to see that there might be some problems. Anything where starch is used, you're allowed to keep them over Pesach. Because there's no tzura of chametz, even though there is starch there. But if it doesn't have a tzura of chametz, it's not collected in one spot, and it doesn't look like chametz, so then it's more to keep it. Haga. That's why you're allowed to glue paper to a window with these starches. Tov shloshim lePesach. As long as it's, even if it's within 30 days of Pesach, yesh machmer. However, those that are machmer not to starch papers to a window, because through the window you can see the starch. If you can see it from outside. That's the Trumas Hadeshin. We also, in the Mishnah Berurah, he talks about if there are gushim, if there's clumps of the starch, that also could be problematic. You'd have to, if they squeeze out, when you put the wallpaper out and you can see globs of this chametz paste, so you'd have to either cover them or get rid of them. Daled. Davar shenis'arev bo chametz ve'eino machal adam klal. Things that were mixed together with chametz, but they're not food, they're not human food. Oh, she'eino machal kol adam, or if they are food, but they're not food for everybody. And here's this example, kamo hatriaka, which in modern Hebrew would be antivenom. And in the lashon of the Machaber, it's a medicine used from snakes, probably against snake bites, and it uses the flesh of snakes together with some chametz, with some crumbs are thrown in. Now you can't eat it because snakes are not kosher. But for someone who was bitten by a snake, it's a medicine, he needs it to live, he's allowed to eat it. So that's what he's calling the eino machal kol adam. Anything which is not either inherently not food or people don't eat it, even though you're allowed to keep it around, however, you cannot actually consume it until after Pesach because you're eating chametz. Now, obviously, if it's a sakanas nefashis, he's allowed to eat it even if it is chametz, right? Because sakanas nefashis is docha everything. But you're allowed to keep it. You're not allowed to eat it until after Pesach, because there's this whole sugi of chosav nir. We're going to get into it in just a bit. Even though there's only a kolshu amount of chametz in this medicinal concoction, Harez asal achlo. Chametz is asal b'mashu, so you're not allowed to eat it. Haga. Ulekaman simen taf mem zayin sif dalid b'haga yispar yesh cholkim. That whole sif of taf mem zayin sif dalid, where Tarovas Chametz is talked about. Some would say umatirim in the Pesach, that you would even be allowed to eat it on Pesach. And that's how the Ramah is posting that you would even be allowed to eat it. Now it's shver, and the question is brought in the Mishnah Berurah, because what we say actually in Taf Mem Zayin Sif Daled is that you, if something was batal, you have a Torah, if something is batal b'shishin. A chametz was batal b'shishin before Pesach, before the Zman Issa. So when it's batal, it's like it's not there. So we say that it is considered completely batal, and you would be allowed even to eat the mixture if it was lach belach, if it was all liquid. So then the liquid is not there. But if it's yavesh, then we say chosev anir on Pesach. So even though it was batal, but there's still something to say that the Isur Chametz comes back. So, I mean, what you could get out of this is that at least if it was lach belach, now, but this triaka, that's not true. There were crumbs of chametz put in, so we still have a question. But the rule is still clear that, at least according to the Mechaber and the Ramah, according to the Ramah, if you had a bittul on this non-food before Pesach more than shishim and it's liquid, you would even be able to eat it on Pesach. But that's not the case with this triaka, so there's a question. Hey, shecha she'osim mechitum m'sa'arim, mead or beer that they make from wheat or barley, chayav lavaro, that you have to get rid of. That is generally considered chametz gomer. V'chein imhem gvinos b'chala. In order to make cheese, you use an acidic ingredient that gets it to clump together. So if you took that acidic ingredient, and it's considered a davar hamamid, it's not the cheese itself so much as something which causes the cheese to coagulate. So the cheese isn't considered chametz, but it's a davar hamamid from chametz. So if you made that acidic ingredient from beer or mead that was made from barley or wheat, so the davar hamamid is also something that you have to get rid of. Now, we're saying that you have to get rid of them, but the Mishnah Berurah points out that that's only midirabanan. And b'di'eved, if you did not get rid of it, it would not be chametz shavar lava Pesach if there's a hefsed meruba. Okay, because it's the rabbanan and there's a hefsed meruba, you would be allowed to eat it. But in general, it would be considered. In most cases, it would be considered chametz shavar lava Pesach. And even if we say because it was the rabbanan and it was only a davar hamamid, you would still need to get rid of the value of the davar hamamid of this cheese. You'd have to get rid of at least that much before the rest of it could be considered. It could be considered mutter to eat after Pesach. But again, you should get rid of it, but it's the rabbanan. Vav nagu legarer haksalam v'hakisos shenaga behem hachametz. There is a minig, and the Mishnah Berurah points out that the Mechaber, by mentioning this, is to let you know, don't make fun of people who do this. There actually is a minig. It is a valid minig. Okay, so there is a minig to scrape the walls and the chairs that chametz touched. And there are those that respackle, with whitewash the walls before Pesach for the same kind of reason. There is a reliable a minig. It's not a minig shtos. If there is chametz in a crack that you're not able to get out afterwards. You're not able to pick it out. Yatich alav matit. Instead, you should put some cement-like covering over it or paint over it. Zayin, batzak shebesidkei areva. Okay, so there's two rules that we need to really understand these next few sifim. When we're talking about dough that's stuck in a kneading trough, and a kneading pot. Okay? So if the dough was put there for the sake of keeping the kli together, or to plug up a hole, so then that's different than if the chametz is just stuck in there because you were using it with chametz. You were kneading dough, and pieces of it got stuck there. So let's read. Areva. If there's dough in the cracks of a kneading trough. If there is in any one spot a kazayas worth of chametz, you must get rid of that. Vimlav, but if there's not in any one place, if you used chametz to keep the broken parts of this areva together, or to plug up a hole, batel b'miyuto, then that chametz that's there is considered batel to the kli because it's servicing the kli, and so as long as it's not a kazayas in one spot, so it's batel. Vimlav, but if it wasn't used to plug up the kli, which is the standard case, chayv levayar, you do have to get rid of that chametz, because we're going to say the underlying assumption is that if you were to gather all the minute pieces of chametz that are stuck in the cracks all along this areva, you would have a kazayas. That's the underlying assumption here. And once you have a kazayas, so you have to get, and it's mitzdarif, the kli is mitzdarif, the different pieces. That's another key point here. So that's why you would have to get rid of it. How do you get rid of it? You can give it to a guy, or what we would call sell to a guy. Ches. If you had two halves of an olive's worth of chametz, not holding the kli together, but just in separate places, so we already said that they're mitzdarif. The chut shel batzik beineim, and we're saying even more now, that there is a string of dough connecting these two half olives worth of dough. Roim kol she'ili noto hachut nitalan imo chayv levar. So we look at if you could pick it up from this string of dough that's holding them together, then you have to get rid of them. V'imlav eno tzarich levar. But if not, you don't have to get rid of it. B'madvar mamarim ba'areva. When is that said? In an areva. Aval bayis afi sheminotel hachut en nitalan imo chayv levar. But in a but in a house, even if you were to grab onto the string of dough, you're not able to pick up the two pieces, you still have to get rid of it. Why? Because you could sweep up the house, and then those two half pieces will be joined into one piece, and it'll be a kazayas of chametz that you have to get rid of. Well, when it is to be mitzvah. Yeah, to be mechazik. Yeah, because that fits into it. Yeah. Otherwise, we already said before that you have to get rid of it. So even if it was there to be mechazik the kli, if you could pick it up together at one spot, at one time, and it forms a spread out kazayas, but could be lifted at one point, then even if it's holding the kli together, it's not. But you have to get rid of it. We said already that a kazayas in one spot, even if it's holding the kli together, you have to get rid of it. So now we said that if it's on the floor, half-kzaysim that are connected, we're afraid that you're gonna sweep them together and it'll form one kazayis. So you also have to get rid of them. If you have half a kazayis of chametz on the main floor and half a kazayis in the upstairs floor, half a kazayis inside the house and half a kazayis on the porch. Half a kazayis in this room and half a kazayis in another room. If they are stuck to the walls, o bakaros, or to the rafters, o bakarkos, or to the floor, Eino chayav levayar. Then you wouldn't have to get rid of them. What we saw before about the two pieces that are connected with the dough that you do have to get rid of, those are freestanding. That's freestanding chametz just sitting on the floor. But something that is stuck into the floor, stuck into the walls of the rafters, we say that the house does not connect them. You just have to be mavatal, and that's enough. A kli would be mitzaref, the different half pieces of chametz, but a house is not. Tes chametz shenis apesh kodem zman isuro. Real chametz that spoiled and again got moldy before the zman iser. V'nisel mechil sakelev. We already covered that. So bad that a dog wouldn't eat it, but we're adding more cases. O shesrafa ba'esh, or if it was burned again before the zman iser, kodem zmano. The nechrach ad she'en roy lekelev, and it got so singed that even a dog wouldn't eat it. O sheyichado liyeshiva, or if let's say you made a chair out of chametz. It's not so crazy. People make all kinds of paper mache, artwork, and kalim, and that's also it's made with a paste of flour and water. V'tochoso betit. Now, in the case of the furniture, where it stops being food and it starts being a kli, even though you designate it as a kli and it's possible to be used as a kli, you still need tachoso betit. You still need to have it covered. So then, even this large gush of chametz, mutar l'kama b'Pesach, because it stops being the kind of chametz that's also it stops being chametz food. Yud. Dioshu mavashal b'shecher sa'orim. Ink, which was cooked with barley beer, barley mead, mutar l'chlavo. You're allowed to write with this ink. And again, that's where it was created before the Zman Isser. Because, even though there's chametz in there, but it became batel before the Zman Isser. Mishnah Berurah, and we're not even afraid that you're going to, let's say, touch the pen to your mouth, and maybe a drop of this ink will get into your mouth on Pesach, because again, it's as if it's not there. He does point out, the Mishnah points out, that if a goy prepared this kind of an ink on Pesach, that would be problematic. I don't know of people that are makpid on that. I don't know what the modern ink making process is. But he does point out that if it were to be prepared on Pesach, then we don't have the heter of it being batel from before Zman Yisura. Yud Aleph. Arevo shaloshin behem chametz. Kneading troughs that you need dough in, or any kind of chametz. Ein nismach al ma sherochtzim osan bechamen umenachrim hachametz mehen. It's not enough that which we wash them out with hot water, and you peck out the chametz that you can see that's in them. The chametz that's in the cracks is a problem. Ki the Mechaber is saying flat out, it's, in one of these, wooden or even any kli where it's possible that in the cracks there can be chametz, then we assume that there's going to be a kzayis and it would be mitzaref through the kli, and we said that's a problem. And since you can't remove it, because before we saw if you see a kzayis you must remove that kzayis, but now we're saying that there's going to be a kzayis held together by the kli, no matter what you do. So now what? V'akli mitzaref, the kli is going to mitzaref it. Mitzaref litno b'matano l'nehudi, that you'd have to give to a guy. Ad lachar Pesach, the Mishnah Berurah talks about selling it to a guy. You could also sell it. Ola tuchem betit, or you'd have to cover them. You'd have to cover them over with cement, shellac, something of that kind. Let's say a challah board made out of wood. By the way, my son makes such challah boards. They're made out of different small pieces of wood that are connected together. And the assumption here is, at least with the technology they had in their days, that there would be chametz, there would be dough stuck in between the slats of the chametz. I don't think that that's true nowadays. But even still, sell your challah board. That would be true about any kli that you leave your flour in all year. Your bread basket also, you should assume that there's crumbs in there that you're not going to get out. Don't use that same bread basket for holding your matzah. Umapa shoysim nochas al sak kemach, a napkin or a cloth or a tablecloth that was on top of a bag of flour. Lo mahani lo neir, it's not enough just to shake it out. We're going to assume that there's flour stuck in between the threads of the mappa. Utzricha kibus, you'd have to wash it. If you wanted to use that tablecloth. And the Mishnah Berurah adds in, Tzrichim kibus, he says that means washing it well in hot water, the aether, which would be, our modern equivalent would be detergent, the chavita, and agitation. If you do all those things, then you can use that same tablecloth on Pesach. We're going to stop here.
Sure.